No, I forgot. Okay, so we'll do it this way. 1, 2, 3. Yes, my book. And oh yes, I have that book over there I wanted to get.
There are calendars that show the Jewish months, but not the Yom Tov. There are other calendars that show the Yom Tov.
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yes, he got one. Thank you.
Okay.
Is it permissible to have more than one?
Sure. We have loads of that left over. We ordered 250. That was a deal we made with our sponsor, as you see at the bottom, Nautilus, who are also becoming one of our corporate sponsors for our Chanuka event. And we have Grove, and I've got 2 other people that I'm hoping to hear back from. And we'll see. I won't tell you who they are, because if they don't pay, I'm not going to mention their names. Yes.
Until that point, it's private.
Right, yes. There are, yes.
Those I don't know.
No, they are. There's a whole bag of them. Yeah, a whole not bag. Yeah.
I think that's really good.
Yeah, we try to have a lot of branding. And we were just finishing off, my wife and I, we're making brochures, little brochures that we can give out to people and so on.
In Indianapolis, the gift shop was called The Bookmark.
Oh,
and we had
Torah?
things made up. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I know
Okay.
it well.
Yeah. Do you?
Years ago, I had a very good friend whose parents lived there.
Okay.
It was Joe and somebody Epstein. Who was it?
Did the text message go out already?
Yes.
It just went out?
I'm sorry?
Check, make sure it's all working. It went out, because once that's gone out, then we can start.
You can start. I shall check it right now.
It should have gone out. If I start checking it, it might leave.
No, I will check.
Okay, so this time next week is already Chanuka. So I think that with it being the first day of Chanuka, a lot of people are very family-oriented, and they do things. Oh, excellent, good. I think that we should not have a shir next Wednesday night, because people are busy. However, don't worry about missing out on a shir, because, as you'll see in the newsletter, I want to have a couple of davenings next week. Wednesday, of course, is a let's just call it a secular holiday. Civil holiday. That's a good word, right? So let's have Shachris then. And I also want to have Mincha and Mariv the first night Chanuka, so we can light the menorah here in Shul.
Have you decided, you're getting a table, or you have what you need?
Yeah, because we need to put it in this area here, so we'll get some sort of something, yes.
You're going to light the menorah and you put it by the window?
Excellent question. So we'll address that here. Yes, we will address. That's part of what we're going to discuss. Yeah. So we'll do a little share after davening Wednesday morning for a few minutes, and Thursday Chanuka on Thursday we want to have davening so we can say Hallel, and also Chanukas Habayis. The Beis Hamikdash was rededicated, and therefore it's wonderful to have a new shul. I say new shul, we're nearly 6 months old, which is still new, but so it's to have our Chanukas Habayis to inaugurate the shul.
You should worry. What is it, at the 38th week? That's when you should worry.
Why?
Is it the 37th or the 36th week? The baby's viable. The 37th, it's not.
I was just thinking.
How my wife.
Oh, you mean the 6 months? Yes, because you can have 6 months babies, like all the others were supposed to be born in 6 months. Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you're right. The Gemara says 6 months is viable, but they say nowadays that doesn't apply anymore due to medical. Okay, so next Wednesday night is Chanuka, the first lighting of Chanuka. So let's first of all, remind ourselves of some of the laws of Chanuka, and then we'll get a little bit more into a discussion of some of the things that went on at that time in Israel and Jerusalem. But first, let's start with the halachas. So the halacha is, and don't forget, Chanuka is a rabbinic holiday. It's hinted to it many times in the Torah. There's many hints and references to Chanuka. But of course, the story happened in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash. There weren't even any prophets in those days, right? Purim, at least they had prophets. That's why it was put. The Book of Esther is in the Tanakh, because they still had prophets in those days. But at the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, it was a very interesting time, shall we say? And therefore, there were no prophets around. There were just rabbis and so on. And therefore, it's not a biblical holiday in any stretch of the imagination. It's a rabbinic holiday, which has been taken on great affinity. Now, the main aspect of Chanukah, as we all know, is the mitzvah to light the menorah, to remember the miracle that happened, that Hashem calls the great miracle, that a bit of oil, a cruse of oil, that was only meant to last for one night, was able to last indeed for 7 nights. Many different opinions how that worked. Did they pour in each night just an eighth and it went up? Did they pour it all in and then the jug automatically, miraculously filled up? Many different ways of understanding how exactly this miracle took place. Now, it's interesting. Miracles in the temple were nothing new, right? There were 10 miracles that happened on a daily basis. In fact, Rabbeinu Bechaye, which I didn't bring with me tonight, he lists 26 miracles that happened regularly in the Beis HaMikdash. The pillar of fire that came on the Mizbeach never wavered. Nobody ever passed out because of the smells and all sorts of things. There was room for everyone to bow down. Exactly. So there were miracles, right? The bread, which nowadays is not a miracle because I have challah that lasts for a whole week because they lace it with preservatives, right? So although it was still hot.
Do they count the miracle of all the shakti that went on?
Right, how much they were able to do, like Erev Pesach. Yeah, those are all miracles. Yeah. So therefore, they were used to miracles in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. So the fact that in the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple, the menorah stayed lit for 8 days was not so much of a crazy thing. It wasn't like, whoop, right? It wasn't such a wow necessarily moment, which is why the rabbis decided, in the temple, in the Beis HaMikdash, is not such a great miracle. So we need to publicize it where? Outside the Beis HaMikdash, outside the temple, for people, because that's like, whoa, you can tell everybody these miracles happen. So therefore, that's why they said everybody has to light the menorah, because you could have said, wait a minute, if it happened in the Beis HaMikdash, so light it in the Beis HaMikdash every year. Or nowadays, our shuls are mini temples, so therefore we should maybe only light the menorah in the shul, right? If you're trying to color, trying to make it equal to the miracle that happened. But no, they said, no, we have to take it out to show everybody, because nobody would have seen the miracle in the Beis HaMikdash. It's not noticeable that there are special miracles. So they said everybody has to take a menorah and everybody has to light Chanuka lights at dark, because obviously in the daytime you can't see the lights. And they instituted, of course, that you say Hallel on Chanuka as well. We don't say Tachnun, any of these sort of things. So what are the halachas of the menorah? So first of all, it's important to say that they made the rule that there has to be a flame, and there has to be a wick, and there has to be some sort of energy, tangible energy. I say that because you use oil or you use wax, so you have a wick and you have a energy source, and you have to have enough of the oil and wicks to burn for half an hour before you light the menorah. So you can't say, oh, I'll light the menorah and then I'll keep adding in more oil. No, that's no good. There has to be enough oil and there has to be enough wick from when you light it in order to fulfill the mitzvah. If it doesn't stay lit for half an hour, let's say it gets blown out or it just goes out, then you don't need to relight it. Why? Because the main mitzvah is to light candles or light something that has the potential when you light it to last for 30 minutes, which is why the reason why I've prefaced it like that is because that rules out electric menorahs. Where is it here? Electric and gas lights may not be used to fulfill the mitzvah of Chanuka candles. Why? First of all, because electricity lacks this idea of a wick and so on and so forth. But even if you did, right? But even if you are, so even if you're going to say, well, you can have a filament and so on and so forth, electricity, say the modern rabbis, lacks this ability of having all the energy it needs prior to being lit, because electricity is constantly drawing more at all the time. However, I did see today that maybe to get out of that issue, you could use a battery-powered menorah, because all the energy in the battery, all the power is already there. Right, but still, we have some of the other issues about. So a battery-powered menorah is definitely better than an electric one plugged into an outlet menorah. But still, one should use something that has a wick and a flame that is something that we can see. And that's why it also rules out gas menorahs, because the gas is not tangible. It's not, you don't see it. It's all whatever. So really, one should use something, I'm not going to say real, but something tangible like wax or oil or any other type of oil.
That occupies space.
That occupies space.
Seriously.
Okay.
It's a liquid. A solid that occupies space.
Okay. We're talking about kosher oils. Yes, one should use kosher oils. Yes. However, Even waxes, well, you can get non-kosher waxes from non-kosher animals.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So then I suppose it should be kosher, right? Also, the candle should be the same height. Whereas I've seen lately some menorahs that go up 4 and then down 4. So that is not good because you need to see them all the same height. So you can see that how many nights of Chanuka it is. Everything should be the same height. And one is not required to switch the wicks every night. The same wicks may be used repeatedly night after night until they won't light anymore. So you don't have to change the wick. You can reuse the same wick. You can even reuse the same oil. Now, I'll let you into a little secret, right? So a lot of people don't like having their Hanukkah lights lit for many hours because it's dangerous, right? So halakhically, you are allowed to put them out. After the half an hour, you're allowed to put them out and so on and so forth. However, there is a better solution that my father came up with many years ago, and I still use it till this day. Although you have to be careful which wicks you use because it only really works with floating wicks. But you only put in a little bit of oil, or you put in water at the bottom. Actually, you can put it in the top because the water sinks to the bottom. And therefore, you only have a little bit of oil floating on top of water. And then once the wick gets to the water, it puts itself out automatically and doesn't ruin the glass and all this sort of stuff. So it's better to not put in so much oil if you're worried about it burning rather than having to extinguish the flame. But you can extinguish the flame, you can blow it out. That's absolutely no problem. But excellent. Yeah, except on Shabbos. So if you're worried about that, make sure you have enough to burn the amount of time you need for Shabbos, but don't overdo it. Yes, otherwise you can't turn it out. Yes. Also, we have our common custom that everybody lights different menorahs, but you don't actually need a menorah in that sense, because if you have glass candles, you can just use a candle. They don't have to be formally in a menorah. So you can put tea lights, make however many nights it is. You can put tea lights, or you can use anything else. Candles need not be placed in menorah or in a vessel. They may be connected to a surface, e.g., a wall or a ledge. So it doesn't have to be that. Yes.
One candle has to be a different height. Either higher or lower.
Okay, excellent. So we also have the shamash, the helper candle, because the rabbi said it's forbidden to have benefit from the candles. And in those days, they didn't have electricity. So therefore, they said you had to have another light. And in order to distinguish the fact that it wasn't part of the menorah, it's either higher or whatever. However, strictly speaking, nowadays that we all have electric lights, you don't necessarily need to have it. And it's also important, if you have 5 people lighting the menorahs, you don't necessarily need to have 5 5 helper candles. You could just have one for all of them, and so on. Also, the candles should be set up in a straight row and not in a circle, because otherwise it would appear as a torch. As we have learned, or we haven't learned, but this book has learned that that a torch is not permissible. However, many poskim hold that although it is where the candles stand in a straight line, it is preferable. Therefore, it is preferable not to use a menorah where the candles are set up in a semicircular motion. It is also preferable that the candles be placed in a straight row and not where some are towards the front and others are towards the back. See diagram 2. Where's diagram 2? Oh, okay. Here's diagram 2. Okay, we get the idea, right? So they should all be on the same line, and they should all be straight. So that is the basic premise of the Hanukkah candles. And the most common practice, some people light them after sunset, some people light it at nightfall, and so on. Although most people go out to events, they don't get home till later. But when you get home, as soon as you're home after nightfall, you should really be lighting the Hanukkah candles. There is no need to sit there for the half an hour watching them or singing or whatever. Not saying you shouldn't. It's a lovely thing to do, to sit by the Hanukkah candles, but you can light them and leave straight away. Okay, that is, once you've lit them, that's the mitzvah. Although, of course, it's a very common thing that a lot of people sit there. We sing, of course, and there's a lot of so people do lots of other singing and so on. Okay, so now, before we get into some more deeper stuff, those of you who were here before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, remember that I got hold of this wonderful book in the fair at BRS before Rosh Hashanah when they were doing Svarim swaps. And this is a book on food, right? It's a book on the foods that great rabbis and rebbes and customs, all the customs related to food are in this book. And we went through some of these amazing things. And then it has all these pictures about all these different things that people used to use. So, of course, I looked at the Chanuka section. Let's have a little quiz, okay? Because this was fascinating. What alcoholic beverage do you think became accustomed to drink on Hanukkah? You say beer?
I'm thinking back 2,000 years. It wasn't Scotch.
And I had to Google this earlier mead. You've heard of mead?
Oh, honey brew.
Yes, honey brew. So let's see. I had to Google this to find out exactly what it was, to show my ignorance, because I couldn't translate what this mem ayin hey dalet stands for, like mead, mod. Right, mead, yes. Who maske ha'osu mimei devash. It is a liqueur, alcohol that is made from honey, right? And it says all these great rabbis would drink a l'chaim of mead after they lit the menorah. Why? Lahoros al tokas hadinim. So you sweeten the judgment, right? We know that the end of Hanukkah is supposed to somehow be the end of the judgment of Rosh Hashanah, Zos Hanukkah. The way I understand it, colloquially, is you got Rosh Hashanah, it's written, Yom Kippur, it's sealed, and then Hoshana Rabbah, it's given out to the right, it's sale. Until Hanukkah, it's like you have sale or return, right? You can exchange it. You can, like Amazon Prime, you've got till Hanukkah to say, you know what, God, I don't like this year that you've given me. I'm going to do tshuva. I'm going to daven for a better thing. So until Hanukkah, it's like you can exchange it. But after the end of Hanukkah, it's all stuff is final. So they have this dvash, and of course we have to make it alcoholic because we're Jewish, right? We can't just say have a little bit of honey. No. We got to make it into an alcoholic beverage. So we have all these people here that used to have at the end of they light the Hanukkah lights, and they would have mead. So if you want to revive this minhag, Chanuka, how many tzaddikim, many righteous people, b'mei Hanukkah would have this mead. Acha Seder Hadlok Zaneus Mashke mead. They would have this alcoholic beverage of mead, and there's loads of them, loads of great Hasidic rabbis and other non-Hasidic rabbis who would have this mead. Now, we also know there is a custom to have, and this is brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, so this is a much stronger custom of having dairy on Hanukkah. Why? Because what was the tide-turning moment of the Hanukkah story? Yes, there was great miracles with Yochanan, and he killed Beis Horon, or whatever, this little narrow pass. There's supposed to be a story where the Greeks were trying to get through, and they were somebody told me, yes, that's what used to happen in Vietnam and these sort of places, right? You have the high ground, and you're. So, but what was the turning point psychologically for people? That's when, what was her name again? Was it Hannah? Oh, man, I've just got out of my head. The name, I think Yehudis, right? Yehudis. That's why people call girls who are born on Hanukkah Yehudis, right? There was a woman called Yehudis who was, I think, the daughter of Matisyahu Kohen Gadol. And the deal was, in those days, right? Nowadays, of course, this is abhorrent even to Goyim. But in those days, any woman who was getting married had to first go to the leader, and they would have their way first, right? Nowadays, even in the Western world or the Eastern world, that would be abhorrent. But in those days,
not the Eastern world.
Okay, all right. Let's not get into that. Okay, so this was what they did, and she decided that she was going to do something about it. So when she was there and so on, and she was seducing this leader, the king there, and she fed him dairy dishes, because dairy dishes are supposed to put you to sleep. If it was me, I would have fed him turkey, because I don't know about you guys, but turkey was a Thanksgiving always puts me to sleep. So I would have fed him turkey. But anyway,
isn't that Yael and Sarah?
The same idea, yes. Okay. It's the same story where they fed him, right? She wanted to seduce him, so she fed him and then killed him. Same, exactly. It's the same idea, right? They seduce the men, and then when the men are all exhausted from whatever, then they kill them. Yes. So that's what she did. She fed him all this dairy stuff, and then when he'd finished, he was exhausted, and she killed him. And once everyone saw that he was dead, it's a bit like what happened, we see, just thinking out of my head, with Syria, right? The minute Assad fled, the minute he'd gone, all his soldiers gone, because they were fighting for him. And once the leader has disappeared, the cause that you're fighting for is gone. So they just all gave down their weapons, and that was it. And that was the end of Assad's regime. You see the same here. Once everyone saw that this guy was dead, they were like, what are we doing all this for? He was all his vision, all his stuff, right? He's dead now. So that was a big turning moment. So because she used dairy foods to entice him, to make him sleepy, there is a custom to have dairy foods on Chanukah. What particular type of dairy foods did the custom become? Blintzes. Let me read it out. Where is it? I had it here. Blintzes. Here we go. The custom was to have blintzes, and there are some pictures of here what they used to make here. Chanukah. Let's show you some pictures here. So here's the pictures of Chanukah. That's a picture apparently of a bottle of mead. There's another picture of a bottle of mead so people can see. Here's huh? Right. Yeah, I looked it up too. I was like, oh, mead. Okay. Here is a challah they used to make in the shape of a menorah. You're accustomed to make a challah in the shape of a menorah. And who's heard of an alanissim kugel? So on Shabbos Chanukah, there was a custom to make an extra special kugel, right? Some people, they always make extra kugels when they have Seder dish. You have Lokshan kugel, this kugel, that kugel. So this kugel was made with nislach. I have no idea what nislach is. But anyway, it's made with some special type of food. And they would also have, where is it? They would make latkes out of, or something out of spelt. Where is it? They would do some spelt dish.
Some grain.
Yeah.
I don't think potatoes
Well, it says the meat, how do you think has grains and fruits in it?
Yes, that too.
Right. Okay, so that's great. But they used to make
potatoes are not indigenous to 2,000
right.
year old Israel. Yeah.
Here. So they have all these fascinating foods. And some of them I can't pronounce. For Oichlim Lokzen, they make Lokzen. Hanase Mikema Shal Kulsemes. Kulsemes is spelt, right? They would make Lokshen out of spelt. Kasha. Kasha Lokshen. Anyway, what are kasha varnishes made out of? They're made out of spelt?
Yeah, well, it could be.
Oh, so right. So you see all these fascinating foods that they would eat. And again, so much stuff here that they would have. Also, pumish. I know what pumice is. They would have this special. Oh, rum. Sorry, it says here. They would also have rum on Chanukah. Maybe that's just because they. Shahu nafutz ma'od. Okay, so that was that you were talking about. There was no whiskey in those days, so rum is something they had in those days.
Rum is made from sugar cane.
Right. So basically, they would have a good time on Chanukah too. They would have mead. They would have all these different types of food. So if anybody wants to make, or anybody online, there was 4 people. I've lost a few now. With this talk of food, they've gone to eat. If anybody wants to make this challah menorah that we see a picture of here, yeah, where is it? This challah menorah. Here in the Chvod Shabbos Chanukah, you see a Chanukah in the shape of a menorah. Let me know. Send me a picture if you want to make this Chanukah menorah and so on. Okay, and Tavshil here we go. These are these blintzes they used to make. Yes, these interesting looking blintzes. That was the custom they used to have. Why blintzes? I don't know. Maybe that was something special they used to have in a time. Okay, so now that we've done some of these things, let's discuss some things that I want to bring out about Chanukah. So here is a book called Midrashei Chanukah or Purim. It's the medrash of all the Chanukah stories that are found in various writings, because you'll find there's very little specific Chanukah stuff. Purim, we have Megillah Esther, we have a tractate in the Talmud called Megillah that's all about Chanukah. Chanukah is quite hidden. Chanukah is quite secretive. And of course, the Tanakh is already finished by then, and so on and so forth, and so on. So apparently, there are opinions that say there were books of Chanukah, but they got lost. They say
in the Birnbaum Siddur,
and there's book of Maccabees and so on.
The book of the Maccabees.
Right, but I'm saying they were. People were saying that there was a lot more on Chanukah and so on that got lost over time. So here is a book compiles all the various midrashim and sources that have been found over the years about Chanukah, and I wanted to read something out. I thought I'd mark down the page. No, okay. So what I never realized is until I read this is I was aware that they made various gezeros, rules that you can't keep Shabbos, you can't keep Bris Milah, and you can't keep Shabbos, Bris Milah, and Rosh Chodesh. right? I was aware of those sort of things. That's what we all hear, okay? But it's that you cannot keep them, yeah. That's what prompted Matisyahu to go to war. It was like, we can't have this. So I thought it was just those three things. But it appears, no, it was much worse than that. And what I see from here is they killed and murdered thousands and thousands and thousands of people, just like the pogroms over the years. It was some of the stories here are absolutely frightening. Absolutely frightening about what they did. Talks about the Yidden were hiding in a cave, trying to keep Shabbos in the cave, and the Yevonim came past and heard, and they lit a fire at the edge of the cave, and they all the smoke. They died from smoke inhalation, right? So they were quite brutal, right? And it's not something you think about the destruction of the second base Hamikdash, the Romans, right? Their terrible things they did, but it seems like at this time with the Greeks they did the same. They were brutal in their put downs of religion and so on.
It's a step back. It's evidence of the fear of an idea more so than of a sword.
Right. It's the same with Russia, right? They were frightened of religion and so on, right? Yeah. So they were quite brutal, and they did beautiful things. Not beautiful, brutal. Yeah, they did brutal things. And it also says in here that Matisyahu, the famous Matisyahu we talk about, he died very early on in one of the first battles. And you always talk about Matisyahu. So why do we know Matisyahu? Because he was the one who told everybody, right, we're going to go out and fight. But he died in the first war. It's where was it? Here. He died in. I thought I had it all marked, but it obviously fell. That he died in the first. He died in the first war. He didn't last very long. Yeah. Here. They killed loads of Jews at that time. It was quite a bloody time, and so on. So the question is, what I want to discuss about tonight is, why did Hashem choose to make a miracle? Now, it's a strange question to ask. Hashem could choose to do any miracles he wants, right? The miracle of the war, we understand. God made a promise that he will never wipe out the Jewish people. We know that. We see that the miracles God is doing with Israel in front of our very own eyes, right? So the miracles of the war, the miracles of defeating the Greeks, I can understand. We celebrate it. We thank Hashem. We have to thank Hashem. That's not what I'm saying. But I understand why God did those miracles. Okay? I understand, of course. The Jews decided we've got to take back our religion, Torah. Hashem is like, yeah, of course. Right? Same with Israel, right? It has to defend Israel. That's very understandable. But why did God make a miracle of the oil? Let me just embellish the question. The Beis HaMikdash was closed for 3 years because, as I said last week, it's amazing. They put idols to Zeus and to other various idols in the Beis HaMikdash, and we said it's amazing. That didn't seem to cause God to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. They slaughtered pigs in the Beis HaMikdash. That didn't seem to cause God to rise up his anger. But when there was dissension amongst the Jewish people at the end of the second Beis HaMikdash, God was like, right, goodbye, that's it. So it's amazing. You see the power of machlokas and so on. Look at this week's Parsha with Yosef and his brothers. It uses 2 words at the beginning. First dream, it says, Vayekanu ubo. They were jealous of him. You're going to be the king and I'm not, right? Jealousy. The second dream, it says, Vayisnu uo. So they hated him, right? And there's a whole lesson. If I wasn't giving a share on Chanuka, I'm talking about, you see that if you uncheck jealousy, you end up with hatred that ends up with murder. Right? All the ills start off with being jealous. Right? I'm jealous of your position. I'm jealous of your life. I'm jealous of your money. I'm jealous of this. I'm jealous of that. That leads to hatred, right? And hatred leads to terrible things. So you see where this can lead. So I get all of that. So the Beis HaMikdash is closed. Okay, there were no daily sacrifices, right? It wasn't great. So much so, if you look in the Gemara, they had to rebuild the Mizbech. They had to rebuild the altar because the altar was defiled. They offered pigs on it. Pray for animals. So they had to take off the stones, they put the stones away, and they had to build it again. Even the menorah, they had to rebuild the menorah. The menorah was defiled. They originally, says the Gemara in Yuma, made a wooden menorah because they couldn't afford anything else. They were poor, they just spent this war effort. So they made a basic menorah out of wood, and eventually when they had money, they redid it out of gold, and then about 100 years later, that's when Herod built this amazing building, and it was just unbelievable. So the Beis Hamikdash was closed for service. They were doing repairings and all this sort of stuff. So nobody would have, as we say in England, batted an eyelid. You have that expression? Batted an eyelash. If there was no menorah, okay? There was no lechem aponim either. There was no showbreads, right? There was no all this other stuff going on. So nobody would have batted an eyelid if, oh, and by the way, as it says here, where did they find this bottle of oil? They found it in the wall. Interesting. They found it in a wall. Yeah, it was hidden behind a brick in the wall. Interesting. I never knew that. They always thought it was they found it in the ground, but no, they found it hidden in a wall behind a brick somewhere. That's what it says in here from this medrash. Okay, so nobody would have cared. It wouldn't have looked out of place if the menorah wasn't lit. Okay, we have one thing. Let's do the mitzvah now. We light. It wouldn't have looked out of place. Okay, God didn't do miracles about anything else. So why did God choose to do a miracle of relighting or this oil lasting for 8 days? Why did he do that miracle? And not just why did he do that miracle, what lesson can we take in the year 5785, 2024? And Chanuka goes over to 2025 this year. Okay, what lesson can we take from that to bring into our days? So I was thinking, based on many sources that I've read and so on, we know the menorah and the flame represents Torah. Represents the flame of Torah. Torah is known as a fire. Kinei mitzvah, Torah or little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness. We're all familiar with these various different phrases. There were no prophets in those days. We said that, right? Prophets are gone. When they had prophets, I wasn't around then, so I don't know, but I imagine things were much easier. Oh, what do we do now? Oh, let's go ask the prophet. Now, I know at the end of the second temple, the first Beis Hamikdash didn't listen to the prophets, and they killed the prophets. Okay. But the time is, well, Moshe Rabbeinu's around. Moshe, what do we do now? Sorry, let me just go ask God. He'll tell us what to do, okay? But the time of the Greeks, they didn't know what to do. Even the Purim story, they had this great leader in Mordechai who was a prophet, and he had great, right? Hashem never said to him, do this, that, the other. True. But he had, thoughts on high. Okay. So there was a figurehead that was, but all of a sudden, the Chanuka story, there was nobody. Okay. There was a vacuum of leadership. There was no big figure. There was no central idea what's going on. Everybody was little guerrilla warfare here, there, and everywhere. There was no even central Torah theme that we have nowadays, right? You'll have a best day and you'll have a this, you'll have a that. Okay, maybe another issue of debate to discuss, right? But still, everyone has their own, set of rules that they follow. It wasn't like that. It was all very hefker. It was all very up in the air. It was all very all over the place. And they didn't know where and what to turn, what was going to keep them going. What was it? We've just beaten the Greeks. And don't forget, Greeks was all this Hellenistic idea, right? This Hellenistic idea that the Torah is ridiculous, living a Jewish life is crazy. Come over to our side and all this sort of stuff and all these sort of things. So there was this huge battle, so much so that one of the greatest rabbis that ever lived at the time in Pirkei Avos is called Antignos Ish Socho. Antignos is a Greek name, right? So you see Greek culture had, permeated Judaism at the time, permeated the highest echelons. So people were in despair. Okay, we've won the war. We're back in the Beis Hamikdash. Now what? Now we know it didn't last because the Hashmonaim fought with each other, the kings, right? And they called in the Romans. We know how that ended, right? So they were in a state of complete despair, despondency. Okay, nobody knew what was going on. How do we move forward? How do we continue? We talked about Syria just a few minutes ago. People, it's like in Syria now. Nobody knows what's going on, how it's going to happen. You have these guerrillas that just war. Nobody knows it's going to be good. Is it not going to be good? How are you going to unify everybody? What's going to happen? Right? Druze are calling Israel, please annex us to your country. Right? Nobody knows. So can you imagine what it must have been like at that time in Israel? Right? Some of your friends are Hellenized. They're not interested in you anymore. Can you imagine what that must have been like at that state? We're excited. We've won the war, but now what? Now what? Where do we turn from here? What happens? Where do we continue? What is going to keep us going? So then Hashem says, I'm going to show you. And they put this oil in. little bit of oil, whatever. They found, okay, let's do the mitzvah. And then they see it's burning. Whew. Okay, day one, maybe right. What's the word for atmospheric conditions? My yacht site lights, the 24-hour ones. They never last 24 hours. They always tell me when I phoned them once, I said, your yacht site lights 24 hours, the 26 ones, they're always out by the end of the day when I want to relight the lights for the next day yonder. I said, so how can you say 24 hours? He said, atmospheric conditions, they tell me. If you got your AC on, it burns up faster at different heights. What's the word? Elevations or sea levels. Okay. So I said to them, well, why didn't you put enough to last 33 hours in? And then it should last 24 hours in everywhere. Okay. So that's why I always make sure I buy a 3-day light, because you can't rely on these 24-hour ones. Anyway, so you get the idea. So maybe the first day they thought, well, okay. So it's still burning great. So it was a little bit more than we thought. Second day, all right, it could happen, maybe, it's good atmospheric conditions here in the Beis HaMikdash. But then it comes to day 3. Ooh, it's still lit. And then day 4, and then day 5, and day 6, and day 7, also on day 8. So you've won the war, okay? You've done all of that. And now you're sitting in the Beis HaMikdash, you're relaxing, and you're going, wow. Look what God is doing for us. He's sending us a message. He's sending us a lesson that the Torah, the menorah that it represents the light of Torah to dispel the darkness. God is showing you, look, the menorah is still burning. It will never extinguish. Keep getting mixed up between extinguish and Anyway, I'll get those words right eventually, right? We're still going. And they're like, wow, this is something that we need to show. This is something that we should take to heart. It's the message of the Torah that God is trying to tell us. It's the light. How do we keep going? How do we make sense of this mess? How do we make sense of this darkness? How do we make sense? How do we continue? How do we go forward? It's the Torah. The light of Torah is shining bright. It will never go out. And even though the Yevanim tried to cause the forgetfulness of the Torah, it didn't happen. And what continued after the Chanuka story? The Torah, as we have it today, most of it comes from the end of the second Beis HaMikdash era. We don't know much about the Torah that was taught in the first Beis HaMikdash. We know very little. We have Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. There's a couple of things the Gemara attributes to Shlomo HaMelech, washing our hands for bread, Eruvin on a Shabbos. There's a couple of things from Shlomo HaMelech, but we have very little Torah from the first Beis HaMikdash, very little, right? But when it comes to second Beis, Rabbi Akiva lived at the end of the second Beis HaMikdash. So God is trying to show, look, things are not going well. We know that. We just had terrible wars. There's people still Hellenized. And as God knew, I think it was 200 and odd years late, 220 years later after the Chanuka story, the Beis HaMikdash is going to be destroyed for good until hopefully 2024, right? So what are we going to keep going with? What is it that's going to keep us together? What is it going to keep the Jews throughout the generations? What is it that's going to keep us together? That is the Torah. And that's, I believe, why Hashem chose to make a miracle with the menorah. The menorah represents Torah. The menorah represents light amongst the darkness. We're in the dark exile. That's what Hashem was trying to tell you. Don't worry, I'm still here. It may look dark. I'm still here. I can still make you see through the darkness. I can make the light shine bright, even in the darkest of times, even when you feel that there's nobody with you. You feel abandoned, you feel alone. Yes, they'd won the war, but they didn't know how to go forward. God is saying, I don't have prophets anymore. I can't give you prophecy like I used to, but I'm going to show you the way forward. I'm literally going to light the way for you. And when they saw, wow, this is wow, this is something that's really special, then can you imagine what must have done for them? Whoa, they must have been like really, really special, really pleased. And that's why there's a very interesting phrase in the Gemara. When did they establish the mitzvahs of Chanukah? Not that first year. It says L'shana ha'acheres. The next year, they established the mitzvah. By Purim, it says straight away. They sent out the letters to all the places to celebrate Purim. Chanukah says they waited till the next year. L'shana ha'acheres, they say, oh, what did they wait a year for? What's this idea of waiting a year? Why didn't they straight away say, we have a miracle? Excellent. Why? because they didn't realize at the time the effects that this miracle would have. Because when everybody saw this miracle, even a year later, they were like, wow, this is what God said is going to light us forward. This is what unified us in this terrible time. This is how they were able to come together and form a new Beis HaMikdash, form a new Jewish entity, form a new Jewish country going forward with the light of Torah based on that miracle. And when they saw that after a year, it's still gone forward, and it was still the effects of that, they said, you know what? We may not have had prophecy, but they had intuition, godly intuition. This is something that every Jewish generation is going to need. This is something that while we can't perceive it now because we're back in the temple, we can feel that this message that gave us hope when we were all disconnected after the war, this message of light and of hope and of Torah is something that we want to engrave in every Jewish generation, in every Jewish person. And they made it a mitzvah. Now, there's a lot of Jewish people who know nothing about religion, don't keep anything, but they know about Chanuka, right? They may not light a menorah, but they know about Chanuka, right? I say maybe one of the great reasons why is because it always comes at the same time as Xmas. So we're always trying to have, different holidays, right? But it's something, right? And Pesach is another one as well, they say, right? When we're free. But God, they said, when we see the effects that this miracle had to show us that the Torah and God is still with us and the light amongst the darkness was such a powerful lesson, what they needed at the time to unify them and show them the way forward. They said, this is something every Jewish generation should have. And that's what lesson we should take out in 2024, 2025. We are also in a little bit of darkness, right? All this anti-Semitism that's been rearing its head that we know about, right? All this anti-Israel stuff that's dressed up as anti-Semitism. I said in my shir on Shabbos, you guys weren't there, and I don't know the people who hear us listening. I said a word that I thought of. Yaakov asked the angel, what is your name? And I spoke about name being the essence of a person and how special we are. That's why my email for our weekly bulletin always has your name on it, right? Because your name is so special. I want you to feel special. Oh, yes. Oh, hi, Barry. Oh, yes, me. Yes. And yours says, oh, Gary. Oh, okay, good. So your name is so personal. But when Yaakov asked the angel, what is your name? What did the angel say? Lama zeh tishal lishmi. Why are you asking my name? And I said, I always try and ask everybody their names when they come in, you be friendly. So far, nobody's ever turned around and say, why are you asking me my name? Right? People don't do that. So why is the angel doing? So I gave but then I also said my own idea. What did the angel just do? He dislocated the hip of Yaakov, and the idea was he was trying to kill Yaakov. He was trying to anti-Semitism, right? He was trying to hurt and harm Yaakov. This was the original anti-Semitism. So Yaakov was trying to say, Hagida lishmecha, tell me what your name is, who we should look out for, who we should be careful of, who tell us the tricks, be careful of them, the German. And what did he say? Lamaza tishalishmi. It doesn't matter. Don't ask me my name, because it doesn't matter what name you have. Because in every generation, the anti-Semitism is there. They'll have a different name here, a different name there. It doesn't matter what their name is. Germans, this, that, the other. It doesn't matter. Lamaza tishalishmi. Don't ask my name. Because anti-Semitism is there. It has no name. It just connects itself to whoever wants to use it. So that's what I said about this anti-Semitism. So the same, to flip it around with Chanukah. In every generation, we have this anti-Semitism. So they realized it's so crazy. In every generation, take this message of Chanukah. Take this message of hope that we saw after we won the war. We were free, but we didn't know how to go forward. We didn't know how to move, to continue. How? And God showed us its light, its Torah. Keep learning the Torah, keep attached to the Torah. He showed us that miracle. And that is the lesson that every year should renew itself. When we sit there, if it's Hashem, next week, this time we'd already sat there. When you look at the menorah, and you think back, let's think about this. If it was 200 years before the end of the second Beis HaMikdash, and the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, I could know the exact year, but I don't off the top of my head. So we're talking about 2,200 years. 2,200 years. We've been lighting the menorah every single year to renew that message of hope. It's the light, it's Torah. That's what keeps the Jew going. We have to connect ourselves to Torah. And in that merit, and in that zechus of keeping the Torah and so on, we will merit to see the coming of Moshiach, the coming of the Geula. And just to finish off, because Hashem just put it back in my head, I came up with another vort this week. and I wanted to share it with you. The dream of Yaakov, when a few weeks ago, he's sleeping at the side of the Beis Hamikdash, and Hashem promises him, you will spread out north, south, east, west. North, south, east, west, right? Which is a strange thing to say, which the Gemara say in Israel, you'll spread out in Israel, right? But really, we've spread out across the whole world. There's Jews everywhere. But what's the first thing it says? Your children will be like the dust of the earth. Then the next words are and there's many words. If your children become connected like the dust, there's nobody has anything more than the other. We're all connected, we're all equal. Then we'll merit to have Israel, whatever. But I thought of something based on anti-Semitism. When your children are like the dust of the earth, when they are murdered in the Holocaust, 6 million, and more probably of the Jews. Wait, if they are murdered, when your children become like the dust of the earth, literally, they die so much. After that, what happened after 1945? The Jews, America, and all these parts of the world that the Jews are in that they weren't in before. So, anyway, what that means is another story, but I just thought that's another interpretation of this possible. When they're literally like the earth because they're dead in the dust, right? Anyway, I just thought of that Vayeshev yesterday whilst I was driving, and I wanted to share that with you. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the positions of the menorah. I said I would discuss it. It was on here, and I forgot. So please accept my apologies. So yes, so in the house, in private houses, nowadays the custom is to light inside the house, not outside like they do in Israel, at a place that people can see, which in my house is not easy because I don't have any windows facing public, because the way my house is, the windows are at the side, but you do up as best as you can, and you find somewhere that you can. In the shul, we try and mirror the temple, and in the temple, the menorah was placed in the southern side between east and west. So that's why in the shul, you put the menorah on the southern side of the shul, between east and west. Now, there's a difference which way you place it, this way or that way. Do you light it from that side or this side? We're going to light it from that side, which means when you look here, you're going to light the light immediately next to the Aron.
Right.
And that's right. So therefore, that's what we're going to do. So I did say I was going to talk about it, and I forgot. So it's past the time. So there'll be no shir formally next Wednesday night, but we are having Shachris next Wednesday morning at 9, and we'll have a little shir afterwards for a few minutes, and then we're going to have Mincha and Mariv next Friday night. Next Wednesday evening at 5:15, which will include the lighting of the menorah and the singing of Ma'asor. And if anybody wants to donate any donuts, we can have those too. Otherwise, we'll just go home and have our own. Okay, have a wonderful week, everybody. And thank you to everybody who is watching on YouTube. Have a great week. And we'll see you, for those who are coming to shul, Friday night at 5:20. How do I end this again? There we go. End stream. Are you sure we want to end the stream? Yes.